business name and how to use Twitter or Facebook to connect with their audience but not be too aggressive.
Right. So do's would be to start listening first, and then on a local level, right? So, I mean, as one example, just find out, it's in Chicago, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so find out who's in Chicago, find out who's in Chicago that's talking about jewelry or things that are related maybe to the lifestyle, and then figure out how they want to engage them. I've got someone who, their Twitter handle is Best Jerky. It's a at Best Jerky, and it's an Indiana business. And I talk about beef jerky, and so they sent me samples. And now I talk about at Best Jerky and the House of Jerky, and and that's how they found me. So you start there, just finding people that are local, and then figure out how to actually talk to them.
I have a question for you. You said that we have a social system, and I'm wondering, you have planets that were on that slide. I'm wondering which planets do you think are going to be on here, and which ones are, going forward, and which ones are the best ones to spend time on?
It's different for everyone. For these actually, interestingly enough, if zero, LinkedIn is, I neglect that one. I mean, I think it's just more just to keep current. Twitter, I give a lot of attention to. Blog, Facebook, Delicious I use as like a work resource. SlideShare, same thing. These are all the ones that I actually tend to use the most, and I might add some, but it's different for everyone. I mean, it really is. Friend feeds, I'm on friend feed. I don't really, my whole thing is I'd rather master a few than just be everywhere. So I do have it open, and friend feed can kind of run on its own. And some people are using that to get information on, but I'm not really. I mean, it's kind of on the far fringe there. It's different for everyone. I couldn't answer that question. I really can't. It depends on. This is kind of where you have to decide how do you want to use these things. So I got it. The reason why I give Twitter a lot of attention is because it's actually on my blog. It's a little bit more straight up, and on Twitter I can be a little bit more of myself and talk to people. And so the two complement each other. So I can say those two are definitely probably on the orbits for a while. I think. Something else comes up. But my strategy is to pick a few and go a little bit deeper. Anybody else? I'm going to do the lady in the black.
I run Twitter for my company, and I also have my own personal Twitter, and I'm having a hard time figuring out. Right now I'm accumulating a lot of great followers for my company, which is also the same people that I'm interested in on a personal level, so I'm having a hard time separating because I feel like I'm already, streaming what's going on that way, but I haven't necessarily brought them over to my personal Twitter. So how do you decide, first of all, I'm having a hard time managing both at the same time.
Yep.
If anybody has a suggestion of what
Is your job to actually do the Twittering on behalf of your company? Is that part of your job?
Yes. And then I have my own, which is interactive.
So the question is, how do you kind of manage the two?
Right, exactly, because I'm building up a great professional following that know me as @on the scene. But now, my personal branding might be disconnected because people don't necessarily know that I'm the one writing for the company, and the people that I'm following don't necessarily.
I would talk to your company and actually, approach them and say, hey. And maybe it's just the logo. What does it look like on Twitter? Is it a logo?
Yes.
Okay. So maybe approach them and say, hey, I'd like to still kind of keep the logo, but I'd like to let people know that I'm behind it, because that's actually a better strategy anyway. And if you do that, you'll start building your activity as well. So it's not just your company that's benefiting. And you don't want to, you want your company.
My personal one is suffering. I
Yeah.
spend most of my time doing it.
I think if you do that, if you were to say, yes, this is the company, yes, I'm working and I'm getting paid to do this, but it's, I think, just a better business practice that your name be attached to it anyway. And then as sort of as a side effect, you'll benefit personally because people will know you and they'll know all the great work that you did for your company, and then and I think you'll be more effective both ways. A lot of these things when you work for a company, you have to look for, it's hard, but you have to look for mutually beneficial opportunities, so things that will benefit your company and will also help you out as well, because that's kind of the win-win. Yeah, last one, in the back there.
This might be related to that. When you're working with clients, smaller companies, 5, 10, 20 million, maybe conservative that, what I mean is they're not corporations. And at that level, typically the owner puts his face out front, and I keep telling them, look, I don't think this is going to work if you're not willing to step forward, or somebody's willing to step forward to put a face to that brand. Just what are your thoughts on that? Because my feeling, for example, on Twitter is I tend not to want to there's a level between me and whoever is behind that logo. I want to see a face because to me that's what energizes and makes this whole meeting work.
So it's a small business, yes?
Yes, and I mean, shall
And
I say?
they naturally put themselves out there in all their advertising, and so they would do it in social space as well, right?
Well, the leaders of the company are not willing to put their face.
Oh, they're not willing to.
They're not, and so I'm even suggesting, look, I need a face. I need somebody's face. Who's it going to be?
Okay, yeah. I mean, again, this goes back to if you are running those, let people know that you're the person managing those, and then you have to deal with that because then you're accountable. It'd be better to do that than to try to have them be the face, and then you acting as like the what I'm looking for, like a ghost author type of thing, you know, where you're kind of handling their behalf. It's better that people know it's you, but you're doing it on behalf of the company versus, you know, carrying over, well, this is the owner and this is their Facebook account or whatever. I mean, I think if they're going to put themselves out there, but they're not going to be responsive, that's not going to do anything for the company.
Okay, because it kind of relates to, she's an employee, as you are, of,
Right.
I forget the company.
Critical mass.
I'm a consultant to them, so you think it's okay for me just to have multiple personas out
I think you have to be transparent, and I mean, what I'm saying is, rather than you recommending that they put their faces out there, if the likelihood is that they're not going to engage, you're better off just being transparent, kind of like going with the route that we discussed earlier. We can talk. I can talk later.
I'll talk to you later. Yeah, it's fine.
You talk about managing your social systems, and say you're in two or three of them. Is there a platform or something that can feed into, or 12, or you can like feed into, so you can not have to go to LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter like 12 times a day to check and manage?
I mean, theoretically friend feed, but you know,
Okay.
it's there's some people. There's a very small, like Robert Scoble, he swears by that, and that's probably he spends almost all his time. It depends on So when a service like that first came out, you initially think, oh, this has kind of solved it, but it's different for everyone. I mean, I think more the emphasis is on how to figure out where those intersections are that work for you. Like for me, it really actually works to have my Twitter synced to Facebook. And we were talking about this earlier. People don't see my conversations; they don't see anything with an ad. All they see is, so it's really like maybe 10 or 12, and it's still a lot. It's still high volume, but I haven't lost anyone because of it. And I've also seen traffic come from it, the links, and it's just easier for me. I don't have to update in two places. So, kind of figure out what works for you, and then just be cognizant of that. I know that I've got people oftentimes talking in Facebook, and they never see the Twitter world, and so I have to kind of manage those two worlds every once in a while. Does that help?
Yeah.
Really quick, do you see any brands right now that are currently, or big companies, why do we always, through these conversations I'm hearing, it always has to be one or the other, a face or a logo? I mean, do you see any brands out there that are doing both, like a person with like, for example, a Starbucks shirt on or a cup in their hand or something?
You do see that.
I haven't seen that yet, so I was wondering if.
No, you do. There's, we were just talking about today how Home Depot, it's thehomedepot.com, it's their logo, but everyone knows it's, I'm forgetting her name.
Right.
Sarah, thank you. Everyone knows it's her. And Zappos, it's a Zappos logo, but everyone knows it's a Zappos CEO. Or, he may get some help from people, but it's consistent enough that it feels like the company. There's plenty of examples. You don't have to go one way or the other. I think you have to figure out which one Comcast decided for Frank that people just gravitated to Frank and they thought, you know what, we've got great PR, so we're gonna let it be Frank. I'd say that was a good move for them. What Southwest does, I think is fine. Southwest has had a couple different people behind it, but they focus more on the value behind it, and getting back to you, and they're pretty good that way. So it's almost like the people for Southwest, it's almost interchangeable. And Southwest is a company where the culture, it almost doesn't matter. It has a very specific customer service culture, so it almost doesn't matter if it's Jack or Harry or whatever. Comcast is different. Like Frank's a bit of an anomaly for that company.